All right, guys, welcome to a special edition of the Communicators. On this episode, we'll be discussing each of the panelists' abilities, when they learned of their abilities, and how they learned of their abilities, as well as what those abilities are. These are just special clips from a past show, and we hope you enjoy. Edgar, when did you know you were psychic?
As a kid, I was always scared of the dark because I used to hear voices. And then when I was 7 years old, I got my first vision of spirit. I was so scared. I didn't know how to handle it, obviously. I was 7 years old. My parents actually took me to a psychologist. I think I told you guys a story because, they thought something was going on with me. And the psychologist actually said that all I wanted was attention. So you can imagine,
for God's sake.
I'm dying of fear every night, every time I have to go to sleep because I would hear voices. And now I started to see things. And 7 years old, I saw my teacher dead. Pretty much they were telling me he was going to die. And my teacher surely died about 3 months later. And then my grandma, she had a big argument with my parents. She told me, you know what? I'm the only one that understands what's going on here. Let me talk to my grandson and I'll take care of him. He doesn't need to go to psychologist anymore. And she kind of did something to block it off for a while. So pretty much from the time I was about 8 years old to about 19, it stopped. I completely blocked it off. And then when I was 19 years old, I came back from a concert. I opened the door, and there was my grandma, who had died about 7 years prior. She just had a full-blown conversation with me. And, of course, I was scared because it was the first time after a long period of time. And after that, it started, being more prevalent, and I can do more things. I can see more things. And it was when I met Linda that it actually went twofold. Like Linda, somehow, without even knowing, just gave me that push so that I can actually see more than I ever did. So that's a little story there.
We come together as the Communicators Group because the combination of all of us help keep the energy secure. So you have
Correct.
abilities, talents that other members on panel don't, and everyone has a different situation, Linda, what about you?
My mother was not supportive in any way. I started my mediumship telling my mom things when I was a very little girl. I think I was about 6 or 7 or probably a little bit younger. I remember one time my mom threatening to wash my mouth out with soap because, of my age. And back in the day, she would tell me that if I kept saying that I see things, that they were going to put me in a straitjacket and put me in a home or in a hospital, and that I had to stop saying things. But yet, this is the funny part. Whenever her and my stepfather would go to the racetrack, they would come to me and say, can you pick out the names of the horses?
Yes.
The numbers? Yes. And one time my stepfather won like this big amount of money on the horses, and he was throwing money at me saying, oh, look what I won. Then there would be times where, there was no money in the home, and my mother would give me 50 cents, and she would give me this huge grocery list, and I would say, Mom, there's no way I could buy all of this with 50 cents. And she says, you will manage. It would send me to the store. I would find money on the street, like a 5 or a 10, or people just come up to me and give me money. So I managed to buy these groceries. So I would say I started seeing our loved ones that departed. I would tell her things that were going to transpire. I used to tell my aunt that her house was going to catch on fire, and it did. Just things or events that I would tell them that was going to happen. And some of it she accepted, and some of it she didn't accept. My mother used to say that my grandmother, who's my guide, used to practice her mediumship, and my grandfather was so much against it. So I know that I got my gift through my grandmother, who passed when I was a very little girl. And it's kind of like a blessing and also a curse, because sometimes you see things and you want to tell people, and you're told when you're little, keep your mouth shut. Children are to be seen, not heard. So it was quite painful for me when I was growing up with this. And so it got to the point where I was afraid of being taken to the loony bin, so I stood silent and held it all within myself. Then when I was proposed to get married, my mother took me to the side and said, never talk about this that you have and what you could do, because you don't want your husband to think that you're crazy and he could put you in a mental institution. So during my first marriage, I also stood silent. But there was a point where I came out of the spiritual closet, so to speak, and I couldn't be silent anymore. I couldn't deal with the voices, with what I was seeing, with my predictions coming through. I just couldn't. So I could say I've been practicing my mediumship now for 40 years without any fear. And now I don't care what people say. Sometimes people want us to, oh, well, tell me what you think about me. Tell me the lottery number and so forth.
Yeah.
And I turn around and say, well, I'm not a circus monkey, and you could believe me or not believe me. But, the listeners are also our critics, and they wouldn't be calling back if we were not giving good, solid advice. I have given advice and did a lot of readings for celebrities, judges, lawyers, doctors, priests, you name it, they're all in that list. And I'm just thankful that I am blessed with this.
Everybody is psychic, in my opinion. It's just a tragedy when, you're a child and you have those abilities and you're all alone with them. Your story is very similar to mine, except I didn't find out until I was 40 that it was in my family line. My whole childhood, that's just your imagination. But yet, I was constantly saying things were going to happen before they happened. And like Edgar, I was scared to death at nighttime. Ghosts came in the middle of the night. Either they'd say something or they wouldn't. But I was always just hugely empathic and psychic. And yet it wasn't until my nephew was 9 years old that he saw his first ghost that it came to light that, hey, maybe he should talk to his uncle. And all of a sudden, that's when I find out that my great-grandmother on one side of the family and then my great-grandfather on the other side of the family collectively had different abilities that I had. And yet, when I reached out to family members and was like, why did you not clue me in on this? Why did you just tell me it was just my imagination? What I hear back is, because I saw that when I was a kid growing up, and it scared me. I didn't want anything to do with it. But I never gave it up. I didn't bottle it up like Edgar did or stop seeing it or things like that. I just got more interested in it. I became a bookworm and just sat there and was like, why can I do this? Why can I do that? I spent all my time in the library as a kid just learning about it, And it just needs to be more of an open conversation, I think, with parents. Dwayne, what about you?
Whatever happened to you guys didn't happen to me. I was trained by somebody to be magical, I learned how to swing a pendulum, and I depossessed ghosts. I learned how to bless houses. I learned how to depossess things, and I learned how to depossess people. That's why I'm like the protector of the show. I'm able to just go in there and know about different things that are happening. So I think it's great that you guys have this ability.
Well, Linda was sharing a story where you, Edgar, and she were depossessing a house, and a girl fainted, and everyone was calling for you, and you were like, la, 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 la. Do you recall that? Because Linda laughed through the entire thing, so I don't think I heard what she said.
Oh, my God. Was it the co-host that was also doing it? Is that what it was?
This was this girl's apartment that she was the writer for People's Magazine. And we found all kinds of witchcraft stuff, and she fainted on the floor. I was trying to get to this girl, but she was heavy, and I kept saying, Dwayne, and you were...
Oh, I remember that.
You were blessing, and I'm like, oh, my God, I'm in trouble here.
Oh, I remember that. That was a while ago.
Well, guys, got about 3 minutes left in tonight's episode, so we just wanted to give you a little overview of us and background on some of us, and so we hope that you've enjoyed the show. We'll give everyone a chance to say goodnight. So, Dwayne, would you like to say goodnight to everyone?
Good night, everyone.
Edgar.
Thank you for listening. Have a good night. God bless.
Linda.
Good night, and can't wait to talk to you next week.
And for me, guys, thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show, and we will get back to you next Wednesday, 7:30 to 8:30 Pacific Standard Time. Call-in number 646-668-8373. Everyone have a good night. Take care.